Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. A couple weeks ago, I posted a short little video on social media about how I rarely give 5-star reviews for books on Amazon. I want to reserve those 5-star ratings and reviews for just the exceptional examples of books I read. I often give 4-star reviews because I think there's something that could be improved in the book. Then I get a reply comment from a young small business owner about how 4-star reviews hurt small business owners more than if I didn't buy his products and that I could just keep my money. I replied that I'm a small business owner too, and that I've been such for over 20 years, and that expecting all 5-star reviews is unrealistic. 4-star reviews are good, and that this just leads to a lot of stress and anxiety. He then replied that you're going to get less sales if you have a 4-star rating. I guess he wasn't listening to me before. Then he says that I should just give him a 5-star rating and put my unwanted criticism of his product or offering in the comments of the review. Wow. I don't even know really where to start with this, but here we go. First of all, it is a myth that anything less than a 5-star review is bad. It's just not true. And here's how I know. In 2018, Amazon launched some brick and mortar stores. What did they name those stores? The Amazon 4-star store. Do you think they would have given the name for their store? Amazon, give a store a name like 4-star store if they didn't think 4 stars was a good review. But of course, people probably are wondering why they didn't say the Amazon 5-star store. So they took a little preemptive strike there, and in their Amazon FAQs, frequently asked questions, for the 4-star stores, here's how they explain that. I'm going to read this because I think it's brilliant. As with any device or product, there will be a range of customer opinions, but anything that achieves an average of 4 stars or above demonstrates a consistent thumbs up from our customers. And notice that it's an average of 4 stars. So Amazon recognizes that there will be a variety of ratings which impacts that average. So I think that ends that discussion. Why don't we move on? There are so many other issues in that very short little exchange I had with this commenter. Again, he said that I should just give him a 5-star rating, and he didn't want the sale if I wasn't going to give him a 5-star rating. And then he didn't want any criticism either. So imagine if you went into a brick and mortar retail store and there's a sales associate at the door and they say, if you're not going to give your purchase today a 5-star review, you must leave now and you're not going to buy anything. That is absurd. It's also unprofitable for the store owner. Honestly, what I think this sounds like is a demand for positive approval from others to protect a very fragile ego. Now, this commenter is not alone. Authors often go down this emotional rabbit hole when they receive a negative review or a low-star rating on their books. They interpret that as a bad review. They don't see ratings and reviews as feedback. They see it as rewards given by customers. And if the reward isn't what they're hoping for, they're completely dejected and they blame the buyers for just being mean and hurtful. I've got a solution though. If you can't tolerate anything but a high rating for your book or product on Amazon, don't publish or sell anything online, especially on Amazon. You need a thick emotional skin to sell on Amazon or online. So brave up. Let's also think about reviews. Genuine, organic reviews are precious. Absolutely precious, regardless of the rating. And what really shocks a lot of authors is that most people don't review or even rate their purchases from Amazon. In a USA Today article from a couple years ago, it said that only 5 to 10% of buyers actually review their purchases. 5 to 10%. Now, I've heard estimates that are even lower than that, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2%. Whichever estimate you go with, it's not high. So those reviews are absolutely precious. And here's something that will surprise you. 5-star reviews don't necessarily mean that the product or book being offered is high quality. Why do I say that? Here are some books that you may have heard of that do not have a 100% 5-star review on Amazon. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Only 72% gave him 5 stars. 1984 by George Orwell. 76% gave them 5 stars. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. She did a little bit better. She got 82% to give it a 5-star rating. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck had a 75% 5-star review level. And The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, 74%. So if those books that are classics, that are pillars of our literary history, can't get 100% 5-star reviews all the time, why do you think you, as a self-published author, should get 100% 5-star reviews all the time? You're just not going to. And here's something else that I read in that USA Today article, that buyers who see all 5-star ratings tend to not trust that very much. In fact, they said that buyers think a rating of like 4.2 to 4.4 is optimal. That's in the 4-star zone. I don't think it hurts small business. I'm just saying. So those 5-star reviews have nothing to do with quality of the offering. It's just how the buyer feels about the experience with that product or that book. Now, when I see 5-star ratings or a mass 5-star ratings, I get a little suspicious. I always think the system has been gamed. And especially if I see that right at the book launch. You know how I don't like book launch teams? And so when I see this flurry of 5-star reviews for a brand new self-published book, I know they've probably used a book launch team, and I always want to look and see if they have verified purchases. And I just don't think, a mass of 5-star reviews. It doesn't do anything for me when I buy a book. And you have to remember too, that some buyers are just grumpy. They won't give a 4 or 5-star review on anything. Well, you got to take the good with the bad. And unless the review violates Amazon community guidelines for reviews, it's a legitimate review. If it's not abusive or uses bad language or anything like that, well, just because it isn't the review you wanted doesn't make it any less legitimate. So this small business owner is relatively inexperienced, I'm going to imagine, as a seller. And he's not alone. There's a lot of Amazon conspiracy theorists, and they think they know how Amazon's algorithm works. Now, this younger business owner, he equated anything less than a 5-star review, average review, for his Amazon sales as bad, and that was reducing his sales or would reduce his sales. Wow. I'm glad you have that insight into how Amazon's algorithm really works. I don't. I wouldn't be stupid enough to even say that I know how Amazon's algorithm works or know that that's what really was impacting my sales. Amazon doesn't share their algorithm, just like Google, because then it can be gamed. And they change it all the time. They're going to keep changing it and changing it and changing it so that the integrity of the system works. And you have to remember too that updating of even the sales rankings, the sales rankings are updated hourly on Amazon. Hourly! So it's a constant moving target. And even if you have a high average star rating on Amazon, it doesn't automatically mean they're going to show your book in a, hey, you also might like, or customers also bought. They're not going to just throw it in there just because it has a high rating. It's ridiculous. And competition is fierce on Amazon. If you have kind of a Me Too offering, it's just like every other product or book on there. You've got lots of competition. All you have to do to find that out is go over to Amazon, type in the topic or subject matter of your book, and see how many results come up. I'm going to guess for most categories, it'll be in the tens of thousands of similar products. So the competition on Amazon is fierce, and what you need to do is you need to start building demand for your product before someone ever gets to Amazon. Then once they buy your book, which hopefully they will, you have no control. You have zero control. They will review your book if they want, which we have talked about isn't often. They'll do the kind of review that they want to do. Whether it's positive or negative, They'll just maybe just give a rating. They might write a review. If they write a review, that's a plus, but they're going to do it the way they want. So let's get to the big question that everyone wants to know. Do lower ratings really mean lower sales? You know I'm a stats nerd. You have seen me do surveys, and I talk about statistics for the book industries, particularly for self-publishing, all the time. And I'm going to remind you that correlation does not equal causation. Most self-published books and niche products don't have a high enough volume of sales or ratings to even make a claim that the low ratings caused low sales. If you have like 2 sales, you can't, it's just not statistically significant. So we can't do that unless you have a mass of reviews, like thousands and thousands, and chances are with your self-published book you don't. But here are some things that can impact your sales on Amazon of your book. The book title and subtitle, the book description, the categories, the keywords. Mostly though, I will tell you that your biggest impact factor for your self-published book is your author platform or your fan base in terms of its size and quality. That is the determining factor of whether you're going to make sales and the kinds and number of reviews you get. In our rating-centric culture, it's really tempting to make ratings and reviews the reason that we think we are successful or failing. And we also use those ratings and reviews as rewards. Just please don't do it. Ratings and reviews are just feedback. So I hope this has given you some perspective on your ratings and reviews on Amazon. And if you found it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would rate, review, and subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show on whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on. I'm on Apple Podcast and Spotify and Stitcher and Google Podcasts and Podbean. If you like the video podcast better, that's great. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so that you get an alert when a new video is available. Please share the podcast or the video with your friends on social media. And my self-published books are available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is go to my Heidi Thorne author page on any one of those sites, and a list of all my books are there. If you'd like to visit my website, it is simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.